Welcome, everyone, to another invigorating episode of Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom, where we decode the mysteries inside your body, one microscopic puzzle piece at a time. I'm Ethan Foster, a man who likes to poke fun at life's oddities and occasionally unearth hidden health facts along the way.
And I'm Alara Sky, your quick-witted commentator who never misses a chance to highlight the comedic side of biology while also dishing out practical wisdom. I'm thrilled to be here, mostly because I get to show off how much random scientific trivia I've crammed into my brain.
That's right. If there's anything more thrilling than discovering your body is home to trillions of microbes, it's realizing that even your pillow can be the penthouse suite for entire microscopic civilizations. Not that we're trying to creep anyone out.
Actually, we might be. Today's star of the show is the dust mite. The name alone conjures images of invisible spider-like creatures that are basically living rent-free in our beds and furniture. For something that's dwarfed by a grain of sand, dust mites can cause a pretty big ruckus for people with asthma or allergies.
Specifically, we're talking about how dust mites trigger allergic reactions, leading to all sorts of issues, ranging from itchy eyes and stuffy noses to full-blown asthma attacks. The good news is that once you know the cause, you're halfway to a solution. The bad news is that you might start vacuuming everything in sight like your life depends on it.
Which, if you have asthma, might feel very true. So, let's not waste any time. We're diving headfirst into how these mites operate, why they're in your house, and how your body's immune system reacts like it just saw a ghost. Plus, we'll explore ways to handle asthma from multiple angles. Because, as we always say, if you can tackle the root cause, you can free yourself from unnecessary meds, or, in this case, from an entire community of uninvited microscopic roommates.
Right. Let's start with the basics. Dust mites are these tiny spider-like creatures. They're part of the arachnid family, like spiders and ticks. But before you toss your phone in horror, let's remember, these mites have always been around, and most of us coexist with them just fine, at least on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly. We'll keep it in perspective. They're not going to come after you like a swarm of hungry ticks. They're too small to see, and they don't actually bite you. Dust mites feed on dead skin cells that flake off us and our pets. If you think that sounds a bit gross, you're not alone. But it's reality. We shed skin cells constantly, and dust mites consider it a buffet.
Which means your mattress is prime real estate for them. Think about it. It's warm, slightly humid from our body heat, and loaded with skin cells. If I were a dust mite, that's exactly where I'd set up shop.
Right. It's not that they're maliciously plotting to attack your lungs. They're just living their best microscopic lives, munching away on your old skin cells. The real trouble stems from their waste products, tiny particles that become airborne and are easily inhaled. That's when the immune system, for some people, goes into full-blown panic mode.
Yes, so let's talk about that. Our immune system is brilliant, but sometimes it overreacts. When dust mite waste gets into the air and we inhale it, some of us have immune systems that treat those particles like actual threats. Suddenly, the body is calling in the cavalry. IgE antibodies, histamine release, the works.
Precisely. The immune system produces IgE antibodies that essentially identify dust mite droppings as an invasion. The next time it sees them, boom, it fires off a big reaction. Mast cells release histamine, and you're sneezing, coughing, itching. Or if you're among the unlucky with allergic asthma, your airways start to constrict.
This is where asthma enters the picture. Asthma is essentially a chronic condition where your airways are hyper-responsive. When something irritates them, like dust mite waste, they swell up. Then you might end up wheezing, coughing, or feeling a tightness in your chest. Breathing can become a real chore.
And it's not just a mild inconvenience. People with severe asthma attacks can find themselves in emergency situations. Dust mites are recognized worldwide as one of the most common indoor triggers for these attacks. Research has placed them front and center in the pantheon of allergens that make our airways scream.
Let me set the scene. You wake up one day, feeling groggy, your nose stuffed up, maybe your chest is tight, and you think, must be something in the morning air. But it could be something that was right under your nose and your body the entire night. Dust mites in your bedding. You were breathing in their waste all night long.
Lovely mental picture, I know. But once you recognize the source, you can do something about it. Let's share some practical strategies for evicting, or at least reducing, the dust mite population. Because I think a lot of folks imagine it's this hopeless scenario, but there are effective steps to take.
The big one is washing your bedding regularly in hot water. We're talking at least 130 degrees Fahrenheit, which is warm enough to neutralize those mites and their droppings. This includes sheets, pillowcases, blankets, anything that can be laundered and is in close contact with your body on a nightly basis.
I'd also mention allergen-proof mattress and pillow covers. These function like little fortresses. Dust mites can't get through, or at least they're significantly hindered. You can even find covers that specifically say dust mite proof.
Another big one is vacuuming with a HEPA filter. If you're using a vacuum that blows that microscopic debris back into the air, you're basically playing catch and release with dust mites. A HEPA filter traps those tiny particles so they don't swirl around the room, waiting for you to inhale them.
Exactly. And consider your home's humidity levels. Dust mites love humidity. Keep it below 50% if possible. That might mean running a dehumidifier in certain climates. The less moisture in the air, the less they thrive.
It's a multi-pronged approach: bedding, vacuuming, controlling humidity, plus consistent cleaning routines like dusting with a damp cloth to trap particles rather than just pushing them around. A little diligence goes a long way.
Absolutely. Now, dust mites aren't the only allergen in town. Some people react to pet dander, pollen, mold, or even cockroaches. But for many folks, dust mites are the biggest offenders in an indoor setting. If you identify that you're allergic to these critters, it's well worth the effort to minimize their presence.
So that's a good chunk of the environmental side of controlling asthma. But you also have a big interest in the dietary aspect, right? Because if you're allergic to dust mites, you might have an underlying inflammatory or immune sensitivity. And certain foods can either ramp that up or tone it down.
Exactly. Asthma is closely tied to inflammation, so if we can calm that inflammation from inside, your body might not be as trigger-happy when it encounters dust mites or other allergens. This is where the conversation about linoleic acid, or LA, comes in.
LA is found in most vegetable oils: corn oil, soy oil, canola oil, safflower oil, peanut oil. Many of these oils are in processed and fast foods, and they sneak into our diet more often than we realize. The modern diet can be loaded with LA, which, in high amounts, contributes to chronic inflammation.
Right. Some folks think, oh, but isn't vegetable oil better than butter? That's outdated thinking. We now know that excessive LA can cause problems at the cellular level. If your body is dealing with chronic inflammation from a poor diet, you're giving your immune system more reasons to overreact.
Exactly. We tend to see that when people cut down their LA to a more balanced level, they notice improvements in all sorts of areas: energy, weight management, and possibly a reduction in inflammatory issues like asthma. It's not magic, but it's a big piece of the puzzle.
Let's paint a picture. You're inhaling dust mite waste that triggers an allergic cascade. Meanwhile, your diet is loaded with these processed oils, fueling the fire of inflammation. That combination can push an already sensitive immune system into overdrive.
So, the first step is to reduce LA intake to under 5 grams a day. For people who really want to push it, going under 2 grams might show even more impact. Now, that does take some diligence with labels, with cooking at home, and with swapping out the conventional oils for healthier alternatives, like grass-fed butter, ghee, coconut oil, or even a high-quality olive oil if you're not cooking at super high temperatures.
Right. It's quite a shift if you've been living on takeout that uses cheap oils. But your body will thank you. And once you start paying attention, you realize how sneaky vegetable oils can be. They show up in everything from salad dressings to bread to your favorite packaged snacks.
Meanwhile, we can't talk about fats without talking about the relationship between omega-6 and omega-3. LA is an omega-6. Many of us get too many omega-6 fats and not enough omega-3. But if your diet is still overloaded with LA, simply adding more omega-3 might not solve the problem. You want balance.
Exactly. And in certain scenarios like pregnancy, there's research showing that slightly increasing omega-3 intake can reduce a child's risk of asthma later in life, assuming you're not drowning in LA in the process. It's about synergy and moderation.
Another interesting dietary tweak: raw milk. Studies have noted that children who consumed raw milk appeared to have a lower incidence of respiratory infections and possibly a decreased risk of asthma. But the key might be that raw milk has intact beneficial bacteria and enzymes, which may help fortify the immune system.
Yes, and that lines up with the farm effect, where kids growing up on farms tend to have fewer allergies, possibly because their immune systems adapt to the microbes in that environment. This concept of letting our immune system learn properly, rather than living in a hyper-sanitized bubble, can reduce the chance of allergies or asthma.
There's also vitamin D. If you don't get enough vitamin D, your immune system can be a bit dysfunctional. Research has shown links between lower vitamin D levels and a higher risk of asthma or allergic conditions in children, so safe sun exposure or vitamin D-rich foods can be helpful.
Right. It's all connected. Now let's talk about quercetin. We often hear about it in the context of anti-inflammatory properties. This is a bioflavonoid found in various fruits and vegetables. It's particularly high in onions, apples, broccoli, and berries.
The reason quercetin is relevant to asthma is that it can help regulate the immune response. Studies show it might reduce the production of inflammatory substances in the airways. Essentially, it can keep things calmer so you don't get that extreme airway constriction.
Right. And it's not just a theory. There's been tangible research pointing out quercetin's ability to modulate that Th2 response. People with allergic asthma often have an overactive Th2 immune profile, which triggers high IgE production. Quercetin helps keep that in check.
So, an easy tip is to eat more quercetin-rich foods. Have an apple with the skin on, add onions to your meals, snack on blueberries, have broccoli as a side dish. If you want a concentrated dose, you can also look into supplements.
Exactly. And for some folks, combining quercetin with things like vitamin C or stinging nettle might provide extra relief. It's a synergy thing. But either way, The foundation is a nutrient-rich diet full of fruits, veggies, and whole foods that keep inflammation levels low.
Now, let's put this all together in a nice, neat package. Step 1. Fix your environment. That means dust-proofing your home, wash bedding in hot water, vacuum with a HEPA filter, keep humidity low, and consider allergen-proof covers.
Step 2. Fix your diet so you're not feeding the internal inflammatory dragon. Slash the vegetable oils. Keep an eye on your overall LA intake. Incorporate healthier fats. Possibly increase your intake of nutrient-dense foods with vitamin D, or carefully get some sunlight, and integrate quercetin-rich foods to help keep your immune system balanced.
When you do these things in tandem, you give yourself a strong foundation against allergic asthma. You might still have sensitivities, but at least you're not living in a dust mite paradise or fueling your body with inflammatory triggers.
And that's crucial because so often we only address one piece of the puzzle. Maybe you focus on cleaning your room or just swap out your cooking oil. But if you combine environmental control with dietary strategies, you'll likely see a bigger difference.
Exactly. We also wanted to clarify the difference between allergies in general and asthma. Allergies are when your immune system decides to treat something harmless, like dust mite droppings, as a threat. Asthma is when that immune reaction also targets your airways. This can cause them to narrow and make breathing tough.
Which is why some people have allergic reactions but not asthma. It's also why others might have both. Dust mites can trigger the entire spectrum. Mild sneezing, a little itching, all the way to serious wheezing or chest tightness.
And interestingly, if someone doesn't address their allergies, they can develop more allergies over time. The phenomenon known as the allergic march basically says, if your immune system is constantly revved up about one allergen, it becomes easier for it to start reacting to new allergens. Now you're allergic to dust mites and maybe pet dander or something else.
Right. So by tackling the root cause, by calming the immune system and creating an environment that's less allergenic, you reduce the chance of picking up new allergies. It's like telling your immune system to chill out.
That's the big holistic picture. If you keep your dust mite population down, keep your inflammation in check, and nourish your immune system properly, you can navigate life with fewer asthma flare-ups. You're always going to have some dust mites around. They're basically impossible to eliminate 100%, but you can knock them down to levels that don't trigger chaos.
And you might find that once your immune system isn't constantly battling dust mite waste, you have more energy for other things. Chronic inflammation can be draining, so it's nice to free up your body's resources for more positive pursuits, like building that new hobby or simply feeling better overall.
I think it's fascinating that something so tiny can cause such big problems. But that's the intricacy of the human body. We're influenced by things we can't even see, yet we have so many tools to address them.
Yes, and it's a testament to how every detail in our environment matters. That's why we're so big on educating people about what's in their homes and on their plates, because those small changes can yield enormous benefits.
Exactly. Let's explore some other angles briefly. While dust mites are a major indoor trigger, people with asthma might also be triggered by exercise, stress, or viral infections. But controlling dust mites in the home is one of the more tangible steps, especially since we spend so much time indoors, sleeping, relaxing, or working.
Right. And if your environment is aggravating your airways every night, it's going to wear you down. Many don't even realize that's why they wake up stuffy or short of breath. They assume it's normal or just a random morning allergy.
But it's not random at all. There's a specific reason, and that's empowering information. Because once you know, you can act on it.
And acting on it doesn't have to break the bank. Washing bedding, using covers, cleaning strategically, these are straightforward methods. Cutting back on high LA oils is also doable if you're willing to do a bit more home cooking or read labels a little more carefully.
Exactly. Let's drill down a bit on the practicalities of lowering your LA intake. First tip is to identify the major sources in your current diet. Are you using canola oil to fry everything? Do you snack on chips made with vegetable oil? Are you picking up store-bought salad dressings that are 60% soybean oil?
Yes, that last one is a big culprit. Many people use salad dressings or mayonnaise without realizing they're loaded with soybean or canola oil. So you can switch to an olive oil-based dressing or make your own at home with a healthier base.
Butter or ghee can replace vegetable oil in cooking. If you're worried about saturated fat, keep in mind that the science has shifted quite a bit over the decades. Many nutrition experts now acknowledge that real butter from grass-fed cows is far from being the villain it was made out to be.
Right. And for those who still want a neutral-tasting oil, coconut oil can work for certain recipes. It's stable at higher temperatures. The key is to get used to reading ingredient lists, because LA is sneaky. It's in many processed foods, especially if they've been fried or prepared with cheap oils.
Precisely. Once you make the shift, you might be pleasantly surprised at how your body feels. And if you're dealing with inflammation-driven issues like asthma, you may find that your symptoms lighten up a bit. It's not overnight magic, but it's definitely worth a try.
And let's not forget the synergy with nutrients like vitamin D. If you get proper sun exposure in a safe manner, meaning you're not scorching yourself but getting enough to produce vitamin D, and you keep your diet full of essential micronutrients, your immune system can better regulate itself. That may mean fewer freakouts over dust mite particles.
Another piece to remember is that every one of us is unique. Some might see quick improvements, others may need additional strategies. But these foundational changes, diet, environment, are beneficial no matter what else you're doing to manage asthma.
Absolutely. Now, we also teased the role of quercetin. Let's give that a bit more spotlight. Quercetin has been studied for its role in modulating airway inflammation. One of the ways it helps is by influencing the production of molecules that cause that bronchial constriction.
Right? So if your airways are less prone to constrict, it helps you avoid that panicked feeling of gasping for air. Quercetin is naturally found in foods, but some folks opt for supplements, especially if they have a particularly reactive system.
The nice thing is that quercetin is in a lot of common produce. If you eat apples daily, preferably with the skin, plus onions in your cooking, you're already increasing your intake. Broccoli, citrus, and berries can also chip in.
Another interesting synergy is combining quercetin with other anti-inflammatory components like stinging nettle or ginger. Some people swear by a combination of these. The goal is to stack the odds in your favor by layering multiple supportive strategies.
Yes, it's a bit like having multiple lines of defense. Dust mite proof your environment, keep LA low, boost your quercetin and vitamin D, stay hydrated, and keep an eye on humidity levels. When you do all that, you're putting up a formidable front against allergic asthma triggers.
And suddenly, dust mites lose a lot of their power. They're still there, but they're no longer holding your lungs hostage.
Exactly. We can't forget that these mites, in their own weird way, are part of a natural ecosystem. They've been around for eons. Our goal is not to eradicate them from the planet, which is impossible, but to manage them so our bodies don't become a war zone.
On that note, let's circle back to the everyday approach. If you suspect your morning congestion or nighttime wheezing has something to do with these mites, try focusing on your bedroom first. That's where you spend roughly a third of your life. If you can transform your sleep environment into a dust mite desert, you might notice a dramatic improvement.
Right. Wash those sheets once a week in hot water, use those allergen covers, consider vacuuming the mattress if it's feasible, and keep your bedroom humidity in check. And if you have carpet, either vacuum it regularly with a HEPA filter or consider switching to a smoother flooring material.
Exactly. People with severe reactions sometimes go as far as removing carpets or plush rugs from the bedroom. It's a significant step, but it can help.
And if you have big fluffy drapes, you might consider washing them frequently or replacing them with something less dust-prone. The key is, don't let them become dust reservoirs.
Indeed. Let's talk for a minute about the mental aspect. For some folks, knowing that dust mites exist in their bed can be psychologically unsettling, but it's also empowering to realize there are solutions.
Absolutely. The knowledge itself is not a reason to panic. It's a reason to make changes. And you don't have to overhaul your entire home in one weekend. Focus on the bed first, then your pillow, then vacuuming or cleaning. Over time, those incremental steps make a huge difference.
And while you're at it, examine your diet. If you see vegetable oil in everything, start by replacing one item at a time. Maybe you start with cooking oil, then look for a new salad dressing, then switch out your snack options.
Right. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. But every little bit counts, especially if you're dealing with an overactive immune system that's easily triggered by dust mites or other allergens.
Another aspect we sometimes hear about is the idea of ingesting local honey for allergies. That's usually for pollen, not dust mites. But the bigger principle of supporting overall immune balance through diet still stands.
Right. Local honey might help some with pollen allergies, but the dust mite conversation is different. We can't exactly eat dust mite droppings in a controlled setting to desensitize ourselves, nor would we want to. So controlling the environment is the more practical route.
And controlling inflammation. That's the core message we keep coming back to. Whether it's dust mites or any other allergen, a body that's loaded with inflammatory signals is going to overreact. A calmer, well-nourished body may not go into meltdown mode as easily.
Which is why I love that Dr. Mercola highlights the interplay between environment, diet, and underlying immune function. It's never just one factor. Our cells respond to everything we do, what we eat, how well we sleep, what we breathe in. That's the essence of this show. Cellular wisdom.
Exactly. Our bodies are wise, but they can be misguided if we give them the wrong signals, or too many allergens. Dust mites are basically sending the message, we're here, we're feasting on your skin flakes. And a sensitive immune system might interpret that as alarm bells, release the histamine, close off the airways.
Which, to be fair, is an overreaction. But that's how allergies work. The good news is that once you address the triggers, the body can recenter itself, at least to some extent. Some people even find that their allergies fade over time with consistent changes.
Yes, that's not guaranteed, but it does happen. And at the very least, you can reduce the frequency or severity of asthma episodes. Even partial improvement is a win if you've been struggling just to catch your breath.
Indeed. Let's also note that if you suspect you have multiple triggers, it might be worth getting tested for specific allergens. Then you know where to focus your efforts. If you're allergic to dust mites and mold, you'll want to tackle both.
True, Because if your basement is moldy, that's another potential source of triggers. But at least with dust mites, there's a fairly clear checklist of what to do. Clean, cover, reduce humidity, vacuum with HEPA, watch your diet. That's a good starting point for a lot of people.
And once you get in the habit, it's not that hard. You'll probably sleep better, feel better, and wonder why you waited so long to wage war against these invisible eight-legged neighbors.
Precisely. It's like giving your lungs a fresh start. Or maybe that's too dramatic. But hey, for someone who's been waking up clogged every morning, it might feel that dramatic.
It sure can. And then, on top of environment, you've got the dietary pillars. Minimizing LA, focusing on whole foods, adding quercetin, possibly raw milk, maybe a bit of extra vitamin D. It all creates a healthier internal ecosystem.
Exactly. A calm, balanced immune system is less likely to overreact. That means dust mites can keep munching on your skin cells quietly without your body flipping out. It's a peaceful coexistence, though one of you is definitely cooler than the other.
I'll let our listeners decide which side they're on. But I'd guess most people prefer not to be the involuntary snack bar for dust mites. Still, it's nature. We can't fight it entirely, but we can manage it.
And that's the message in a nutshell. Don't fear the mites, but don't ignore them either. Take practical steps to reduce exposure and let your diet support a more resilient immune system.
Yes, that's cellular wisdom right there. Acknowledging the interplay between environment and body and making changes on both fronts for better health. No disclaimers needed, just common sense and a willingness to wash your pillowcases more often than once every 6 months.
Spoken like someone who's definitely not using the same pillowcase she's used since college.
That would be a health hazard. My pillowcases get a steam treatment from a NASA-level device. Not really, but a girl can dream.
Right. As we approach our wrap-up, let's recap in simple bullet points for our dear listeners. Dust mites are a major indoor allergen, especially for asthmatics. They thrive in warm, humid, dusty spots like bedding and upholstered furniture. Their waste triggers allergic immune responses, leading to potential asthma attacks.
To tame dust mites, keep your bedding clean, use allergen-proof covers, vacuum with HEPA, and maintain lower humidity. Then support your body's resilience through a healthy diet. Avoid excessive LA, cook with better fats, consider quercetin-rich foods, get some vitamin D, and look into raw milk if it suits you.
And that's the big picture. By tackling it from both sides, environment and diet, you reduce the chance of your immune system staging a Shakespearean tragedy every time you inhale at night.
Precisely. The final act here is a happily ever after scenario where you can breathe easier, literally and figuratively.
And that's all for this episode of Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. I'm Ethan Foster, always here to remind you that even the smallest creatures can have a big impact on our health.
And I'm Alara Sky, urging you to vacuum, wash, rinse, and repeat, along with rethinking those cooking oils, so that dust mites don't keep you up at night. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time with more insights on how your body works at the cellular level.
Until then, may your lungs remain clear, your bed remain as dust-free as possible, and your immune system remain calm, cool, and collected.
Goodbye, everyone. And may the mites find your housekeeping so impeccable that they pack up and move elsewhere.